All told me about the south of France and the light you get there and the joy of basking in that light. This was 1888. I was 35 and I had certainly made more than 400 paintings. From then on, the machine would get carried away. During the 2 short years I had left, I would produce almost as many again. So, off I went, down south, to a city called Arles. And in Arles, I painted. I painted that yellow light. I painted it by night, this vivid yellow and deep blue, like golden nuggets against a screen of darkness, no yellow without blue. I painted the day, yellow, sulfur yellow, lemon, pale lemon, gold. I painted without stopping. I was searching, brighter, always brighter. I was obsessed with that high yellow note. I was tracking it, circling it, closing in, until everything flickered. I've been through these places. Morning, afternoon, evening, in the burning heat, sometimes disturbed, and always alone. Always. Peter can tread in my footsteps, but he'll never be alone as I was. That's when Gauguin and the severed ear incident happened. So much has been said about it all that I have to tell you the story. I knew Gauguin from Paris. That's him. A self-portrait he gave me. I admired him as a painter. And I wanted him to come to Arles and set up a community of artists. So I wrote to him, saying I had rented a house with a room for him. I asked Theo to write to him too, and to send him some money. Gauguin took his time. Eventually he wrote back. He couldn't come right away, but he was assuring me that he wanted to very much. He delayed. And then at last he was here in Arles. I don't think I had ever been so happy. I was convinced that together we would make strides. We worked very well together, side by side, elbow to elbow, sometimes on the same subject. However, there were problems. I was highly strung. I smoked too much, drank too much coffee, and too much wine. I don't even know what happened that night. We probably drank again. We definitely argued. Then I cut a little piece of my ear off. And in the middle of the night, I took this piece of ear to Rachel. I liked Rachel. She was close to me. She had a warm heart. Nothing was ever the same after that. People said I was mad, the mad redhead, they called me. So I asked to be committed to the hospice in Saint-Rémy-en-Provence, a home for the insane, committed voluntarily. And I painted. I kept painting, like a painting engine. I felt I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. I never took a break. So I worked flat out, like a bricklayer. I worked hard.
Dear Theo, the work is going very well. I'm struggling with a picture I started a few days before my illness. A reaper. The study is all yellow, extremely thickly painted, but the subject was beautiful and simple. I see in him the image of death, but there's no sadness in this death. It takes place in broad daylight, with the sun flooding everything in the light of pure gold.
And I kept myself in the asylum for a whole year. Why? I stayed in the hospital because it's cheaper than living in a hotel. And they left me in peace there. I could go out when I wanted, so I could paint. Sometimes the pictures came to me naturally, like in a dream. But sometimes it was terribly laborious, as hard as searching for a diamond or a pearl. The olive trees, for example. I was struggling to capture them. They were silver, sometimes with more blue in them, sometimes greenish or bronze. It's difficult, terribly difficult. But I like it so much to work in the fields. After a year in the asylum, I felt I was better. My old demons were leaving me in peace. Well, not all the time, but more and more often, and for longer periods. So I told myself that what I had learned in the south, drawing in color, well, I could apply it in the north. I could paint the north in the southern light. I talked about this to Theo. Theo had married Johanna. They just had a little boy, a little Vincent, named after me. But what about me? Would my brother be able to afford a family as well as my painting and living expenses? Theo suggested that I moved to Auvers-sur-Oise. I was now 37, and these were to be the last 2 months of my life. Auvers was Theo's choice.
Action!
He recommended the doctor who loved painting and painters. The doctor was Dr. Gachet. The house, you see, was his. That's where he lived. I painted several portraits of the doctor. I know Theo. He thought the doctor could keep an eye on me. I immediately felt Dr. Gachet was a friend. He wanted me to paint a lot, as therapy. I stayed in a small room in a boarding house. I wanted to live cheaply, like a bricklayer. And the Ravoux family was so nice. My room was only 3 francs 50 per day. And the food was good there. I felt good in Auvers right away. And I felt really at peace among that nature. All those fields, the tranquility of the green countryside after the merciless beauty of the south. It all put my mind at rest. Everything suddenly became clear and simple. And I kept on drawing, of course. Those sketches are my vision of people and things. I need the sketch to imagine the paintings to come. It all begins in the simplicity of drawing, when there's no more than a line. Sometimes it becomes a detail, at other times the whole picture. I had been painting day after day for 9 years without stopping. 9 years and over 900 paintings. Still lifes, portraits, landscapes. I worked more and more and more and more quickly. Then I knew that my painting was good. In Auvers, I crossed a new threshold. More than 80 paintings in 2 months. Do the math. That's sometimes 3 paintings a day. An exhausting, burning pace. I got up early. I went to bed late. I painted. I walked. I walked for hours. And I was alone. Yes, in the end, I was always alone. I couldn't go on. Too much solitude and such immense exhaustion. So one evil day in July, the 27th of July, 1890 to be precise, one day of utter weariness, I shot myself in the chest. Surrounded by wheat, in the middle of the fields, just where I loved to paint. 2 days later, I died. My dedicated and beloved brother, Theo, died just 6 months later.
Vincent, just before you die, you wrote 2 letters to your brother Theo. The first letter you wrote, but didn't mail, was found on your body. In that letter, stained by your blood, you told Theo of your torment and how you risked your life for your work, for your paintings. In the other letter, the one you mailed, you told Theo about your love of the light and detail in one of your last paintings. Foreground of green and pink grass, a lilac and green bush on the left, and a clump of plants with whitish foliage. In the center, a rose bed. The house itself in the background, pink, with a roof of bluish tiles. A bench with 3 chairs, a dark figure in a yellow hat, and a black cat in the foreground. Pale green sky. I guess you wanted Theo to know how pleased you were with your work. You had a short life, only 37 years. But your life is made longer by your paintings. You live on in them. After all, they are what mattered most.